Okay, I am not actually... Where's my little buddy? What? Oh, jeez. I think... Well, see, I wasn't trying to be recording. I just wanted to... Oh, I'm writing on paper. Now I have a marker. Well, now I have a marker in my mouth. Whoopsie. But this would be... This would be... And it would be green on paper. And in black. Although technically the between page and let's put a there we go, that's better. Make it a little thicker too. Hey, oh, that didn't work. Whoop. If this were my normal setup, weird, okay. Can I switch to purple? I don't even know if I have a purple marker. And this is going to confuse me, so I'm probably not going to actually record for long, but I don't have a purple skinny pen, so we'll go with this blue here, although I do have all my other markers, and I could try out one of my, but I was trying to get the thing open. Have I taken a... see, even right now, like, I know that it is... See, that's very faint, if you can see. Wee, wee, wee. Normally this would be lit up, but there's that and that. But normally I have a... that's another way. I have my little avatar face cam. Why are you not popping up? There you go. It didn't do that the first time or the second or whatever, but see, that is what I was just writing about. And here's what's going on is I finally have been listening to Eckhart Tolle, and you know, aware of him for a long time. You know, his name, who he was, yada yada, but never listened or read any of his stuff, really. So here's what I was gonna do to try to, like, you know, make a link back to the digital, because this truly is now truly becoming, multimedia in a new form instead of, at least a new active form, I guess. Meaning, working on clearly I don't have a whatever reference for this, and I was trying to do it in the symbol for a link, which versus just like a chain link for in digi speak sort of. But this page is, so I've been working, either writing on paper or not, and so the multimedia sort of aspect of this hasn't been like fully multimedia. It's been multimedia analog or multimedia. Oopsie, are you? Oh, that's good to know. It does pick up. The lighting in here is not very bright. But see, because these are acrylic markers. Up here I was talking about, split focus, but actually, not even focus. Yeah, I guess focus. Being present, but doing more than one thing in presence. Because one of my key pieces of advice, and one of the ones that, in some regards it's harder for me to follow my own advice, is, basically, I say, rest when you're resting, play when it's usually between those three, work, play, and rest. And to be as present, ideally fully present, in whichever one the ultimate would be choose. Beyond that is just your natural state of, flow of being present. It's beyond the choice, because it's become sort of muscle memory of your, brain, your body, your thinker, versus, being unconscious, it's getting to a state of fully realized consciousness, which paradoxically, would be being fully unconscious, not, rigid. You're flowing, you're just like, woo, letting que sera, sera, that becomes more and more and more your natural state. I can only speak on my own journey, which is how my offerings come out. If I'm doing readings or whatever, like I haven't sat down and tried to meditate and do a collective reading. I'm not a reader, first of all. That is one of the things that I do. I'm sure I could do that. And, it's kind of the beauty of those readings, though, being on the receiving end of them. And for me being a conscious channel, they're like, this is a timeless reading. And so whenever it finds you or you find it, that is the correct time. And it will make sense in that time. Meanwhile, we're all trying to, what's up with this time is an illusion thing, like, or, nonlinear time, or basically it's the present versus time. But it's kind of funny because I just, it just clicked as far as like, oh, okay, I get it. Not the nonlinear time or whatever, but time as a dimension, because people are starting to talk about this stuff in general, but specifically like 5D, like 3D versus 5D. And I'm like, well, shit, I'm, 22D already, even before I heard anyone talking about the 5D, it's just like the words are what they are, the meaning, and this is, hello, ding, 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 the gift of presence of the now is, and it applies to all things, time included, is, it's all true and correct, and, but basically, like the meaning, the essence, the soul of a thing, of a truth, is what it is, regardless of, what it's called, or, all that good stuff. God, source, for me, the PTB, which it wouldn't be the PTB for me had it not been for, Buffy the Vampire Slayer fandom, and just really loving that show, and, just the show itself, really well written, and, I wasn't like into vampires, like I was into that show, and then vampires were sort of secondary, but the powers that be, angel, which is like an extra layer of haha, is because, my guides, my PTB, your PTB, source, teachers, non-embodied beings. For me, it started with Kuan Yin, and then a few others, Christ Michael, not too much direct, for me it was really Kuan Yin, and then the chief is a another one, less frequent, but, most of my interaction, communication, relationship, at least as far as I knew, growing up, starting with when I was 12. So it was happening before that, and this is, stay with me, it's all the same thing. I was channeling and communicating with the PTB source, my guides, Kuan Yin, before I knew that's what I was doing, where it was just, being sensitive to energy and, scared of the dark, being alone and like, ooh, being extra antennae, my sensitivity was high and fully engaged, and didn't know that it was something that, was an instrument, part of my instrument. So, there's never been a time when I wasn't communicating with Source, with my higher self, with God, with the angels, with Kuan Yin, just as there's never a time when you have not, or, have been communicating, connecting with, but then, so that was happening to younger me, but then at 12, from 12 on, I was given the, piece of information, the name, the, of channeling. Oh, okay, that's what's going on, And it wasn't me, it was my mom running downstairs and waking me up, I think I'm going crazy. I was typing, and then all of a sudden, I wasn't. So my mom was free writing, channeling, because she had been, getting into the sort of new age, esoteric awareness studies, all of this stuff, learning the lingo, which is, part of the thing I was writing up here about, jargon. So for me, I was given, a new door opened, a new box of, connectivity was presented to me. That little gift in the present, which same but different. I may be mirroring that experience for you. And then as I made more connections and, discovered more, further labeling and quantifying and titling and ahaing, and that's why I know what I know. That's called, clairsentience, or when I can pull pictures out of people's head when they're trying to describe this guy they saw, at work, a customer, and I'm like, I could see it. I'm like, I see him. I can totally see him. His hair is bald, and the mole on his nose, and the wine stain on his cheek. Oh, that's Baryshnikov. No, not Baryshnikov. That's funny. Gorbachev. I added that last little bit there, but that would be a further, layer of this sort of unfolding of your, your lotus blossom. If, say back then Gorbachev wasn't Gorbachev and was just a customer that somebody had this experience with, and then he later became Gorbachev. Well, he was always Gorbachev. And if you don't know who that is, he was sort of the last nicey cartoon grandpa, Russian uncle, but and Baryshnikov is a dancer that everybody was in love with. I wasn't, I was like, oh, I hadn't really watched him dance, but everyone was like, oh, he's so hot, and I was like, oh, okay. I was into Billy Idol, but anyway, so then I'm learning, oh, my mom is doing this thing called channeling, and, now it's like there's who knows how many YouTube channels that I thought was funny when I was just sort of putting my channel together. And, but it has, we are coming together, this collective, more, see, but it's not any more quickly or more whatever. We are just, perhaps, the discussion of your reality being what you focus on. I don't have a quick little one-liner for that, but there is one that, like, where your attention is, that's all that there is. So that is closer to, stripping away the periphery, the noise that is not the now, that is not in alignment with being present, with being, centered, with finding and or developing your gifts, these kind of gifts, all gifts, but even that, you're already fully formed, you're fully able to do, like it says in the Bible, oh, Master Jesus, Sifu, like, how you're so special. And Jesus says, no, I'm not. I'm but a man. And, not only can you not, he didn't say, will be, able to in the future. It was no, already now, you can do all of this and so much more. And we are already perfect, fully formed. That is why everything that you can conceive of and more, your wildest dreams, and, if you're foolish or not seated in your awareness of self, to, choose my worst nightmares. I got one last night, and it had to do with this and, the future. And it was like, if you take the time element, the future element out of it, then it's just a matter of, listening being present, you know. So my relationship with Kuan Yin was developing, you know, in my teen years, and you know, I've been on this path since, you know, before I realized that, you know, I was on it, before I realized that, you know, while this body was formed, and my soul, the real me, the full me, which is talking to the full you as well as the, you know, what you think of is you, your body, your name, your job, you know, you know, like, I don't know anything about all this woo-woo stuff, but there's something about it that's calling me to it. Well, that is your higher self, your, you know, the part of you that is permanent, that is infinite, that is, you know, all knowing, all powerful. Your manifestation skills are like, boop, you think it, and, you know, ask and you shall receive. There was something that I started to say about, you know, like developing your skills, me developing my, you know, my toolbox. But I came here with it. And I used to say, and just know that, you know, pre-verbal babies, and pre-babies, you know, souls, essentially, you know, it's a process of forgetting, you know. A lot of spiritual teachers and stuff talk about, you know, the illusion and or the fact that, you know, this is a dream, you know, poets, and I'm sure a lot of the people I have not yet read, kind of like Eckhart Tolle, you know, I was like, oh, I know I'm gonna vibe with it, and it'll be what I know that it is. But I was just thinking of like Rumi or, you know, other sort of poets that would write about these things, whether, you know, you put it under the umbrella of spirituality, mysticism, or philosophy, you know, metaphysics, all of that stuff. You know, they write about these truths, and like waking up to the reality, that which is, you know, all the stuff where we're trying to get there. You know, I am working on the process of forgetting and then remembering, which is what I was about to say. Is like, I used to, you know, from whatever young age, had to believe that like babies come here and they know everything, because I used to say, like, they were just on the other side, you know, they were just with source, with all the things that all of us, you know, little human seekers are looking for and wanting, which is the irony. Like, okay, well, you know, and I just gotta, like, okay, be present and, like, follow the rules of the, you know, 3D YouTube, yada yada. But so I won't say what apparently you're not allowed to say. But if you are like, if your end goal is that which lies beyond, the limitations and restrictions and boundaries of this life and whatnot, then, a lot of Christians, preachers teach that, did I finish what I was saying? That, like, babies know everything, like they're, the distance from you being with Source, God, whatever, across the veil, the other side, the distance from that togetherness, that unity, to, from little babies on, the further away you travel from that, it's a process of like forgetting and then, remembering that you already have it. You didn't have it and lose it. You have it at all times. I was using not time but distance. And it's like, oh, and that's what the, like, waking up, like, if you think about, when you're dreaming, and I am a dreamer. Like, I have just incredible dreams, always have, and remember them very clearly. But, waking up from a dream and, like, oh, woo, that felt so real. For me, it was being killed in a dream and still being alive. I was like, oh, wait, I was told that can't happen. Like, then my rational monkey mind is like, well, actually, I was just shot in the back of the head. And, somehow, like, playing out all of the scenarios of how it couldn't be that, the information was false, rather than, realizing the most obvious, Occam's razor, that, oh, I was just shot in the back of the head, hiding from these bad guys, and, oh, interesting. I've only lucid dreamed once, fully that, I was like, oh, I'm lucid dreaming and this is fucking amazing and yada yada. But I definitely have exercised my, stretching my what's possible in terms of, control in the dream state, because I remember thinking during that dream that I'm talking about, being shot, that, like, oh, wait a minute, like, this can't happen in a dream. And then, like, doing that sort of rationalization process that I was talking about, and while still dreaming, like, okay, well, let me get shot again just to make sure that, I coulda, shoulda, woulda been dead, but didn't, and that, sort of using my dream experience as, an experiment. But what I wanted to say about in trying to wrap your head around, that's funny, concepts like this, like I used to get, I called it existential dread even before, I ever looked that up or, was reading anything remotely philosophical or, whatever. Similarly, science, specifically, theoretical physics and whatnot, it came to me first directly from, source, my higher self, the creators of all of this playland that we are playing together or learning together. Some people call it Earth School, but I would get the knowing, the truth would come to me before the concepts were introduced to me, like in science or in books or in movies or, similarly with philosophy. And then, I just knew it, like it was unfiltered, straight from the tap. And then as I continued on my path, I would discover the first, in the sort of duality that is, the primary limiting factor in quote getting to, this place, that this feeling, this, level of consciousness, this whatever, higher state, Christ consciousness, enlightenment, unity, whatever, getting back to the reconnected with source, both the external idea of that, God, Allah, the universe, getting back to that connection, first of all, that, many and most think of, even if they realize it's the thinking that gets in the way of the knowing, that is the barrier between, that separates, us as little God sparkles, God sparks, like, think of a, campfire and those embers that pop off, they're still maintain all of the qualities of, that log, that, that process of, splitting, the Big Bang, first getting to that, reconnecting with and feeling very like your relationship with that higher being, whatever that is for you, nature. And then beyond that is where you like realize, and you probably knew it intellectually or you read about it and it made sense, sounded true, it resonated with you, that, ultimately, and this is where it can get, a little scary for some people. It did for me, in thinking that, like, well, you are that, you are the creator of your reality. Everything within it is a reflection of you, your thoughts on it, your whatever. So in the process of learning, you're like, oh, I'm judging that person, and like, they're rubbing me the wrong way, and I don't know why, or whatever. So then you can learn, or if you're in therapy, realize that, like, it's not about them, it's about you. So what is it in you? And that's kind of was my path for a long time, like looking at any sort of judgments of, you know, good and bad, right and wrong, all of that, like, you know, ugly outfit, and, you know, like when I was younger, I would make ridiculous, like one of the more ridiculous, but also true, and that's the fun part of, you know, beyond duality, is I would say, first it started as like you can judge, because I thought about making a short film of, it's funny, I just remembered exactly like where that was. I was in Dana Point, and was taking pictures, I think with a camera. I might have been, you know, taking them in my director photographer brain, and that's when the idea sparked of, you know, but the idea was that you can tell a lot about a person from their shoes. Well, that truth for me really ended up being that, like, I can, you know, read a person, their, you know, who they are essentially, very quickly, and, you know, I've learned more about that is, you know, I'm reading souls more than, you know, the whatever the manifestation, the outward expression of that soul, and their connection and awareness to how conscious they are of their own yada yada, where they are on the path. And, you know, it's a matter of, like, me saying that, you know, I meet people where they are, and while I can, you know, get those reads on people, within that is always, and, you know, I'm not a big fan of absolutes in, you know, thinking and speaking specifically, but that the openness for to be surprised, you know, to be wrong, like, I love it, and when, you know, you are right for a certain percentage of time, it can get a little boring. You know, some people who are more in their ego, you know, and this I've only encountered, you know, fairly recently in the last decade or so, people thinking that, you know, oh, you think you're better than other people, or specifically it was, you know, better than me, whether it was stated or not, and it was, you know, both true and untrue. Not better than, just that I am me, I'm secure in who I am, what I have to offer, my knowledge, my experience, you know, I am what I am, and I love what I am, and my having a lot of skills or knowledge or, you know, random abilities is a good thing. It shouldn't be something that threatens anyone, you know. It's like, well, cool, you know, if the apocalypse, zombie apocalypse happens, you know, I'll be a little like, oh, bummered that I didn't learn how to lockpick, on YouTube. I'll have to go and, find analog version of that and the tools and the whatever. I can't order it up on Amazon, and because right now there is no no need for me to know how to do that. But I'm certainly not a paranoid prepper nihilist thinking. I'm forward thinking in that, if this shit goes down, you better be ready when the shit goes down. And it's just, I like to learn things, and it'll be handy to have that skill if it ever comes in need. But yeah, so you're already there. You're already perfect. There is no division. You were never born, and you will never die. So thinking about those things is like, what? That's crazy, or that's, inconceivable. The idea of, you are the creator and the creation. If that is a little daunting, just like, let it go. Like, don't worry about it is the main thing. It's a good thing. You're not alone. And if you're feeling woo-woo-y, if you're in, the dark night of the soul process, again, you're not alone. It's everything is good, and, even the quote bad is good. If you are in the process of, knowing that about yourself, but not understanding what to do with it, or, how to control it, or how to make it feel less like, whoa, this is too much. Just think about, like, whatever is freaking you out, you're in control of that thing and your experience with it, your relationship with it. So love it and, accept it and make friends with it, That's what I guess shadow work is all about. I haven't done it like by the book or the books, any of the whatevers. I haven't really traveled anyone else's road, because I when I do take little jumps, little side trips, I realize that, like, okay, I'm doing my own version of that, and that is what we are all doing. But if you're scared of sort of forging your own path, then, follow what resonates with you. Discernment is key, and it is the most important sort of tool of the, spiritual seeker person. Like I tell people, like, question everything, but specifically your leaders, and most specifically religious leaders, political leaders similarly, but in terms of issues of your soul, your ultimate reality now, which is all there is, or in the future, like, I was watching something, and somebody was so terrified of going to hell for just like, I think it was, having it's starting to come into the pop culture, intrusive thoughts, that is your monkey mind just like processing information and running in the background. So, for me, that's where it really started, was with religion, organized religion, dogma, specifically Judeo-Christian religion, and the rules and the whole thing. Like Jesus, I was like, yep, I liked everything I heard and read about Jesus. I'm like, and that's when the truth is the truth. If it's everything about it feels right to you, then, so that's source. And then there's the middlemen, the people like me who are suggesting, I'm suggesting to you, but as I said, this is based on my own experience, and you can take what of it, resonates with you, but don't, follow me, if, something I'm saying, it seems super off to you. I'm very disorganized in my process, so, that may make you uncomfortable. But when you're looking to those people, and as you're doing so, like, take more and more of the, quote, control, the, this is how you create your own reality, is by choosing, love over fear. Like, that's why I tattooed these guys on my knuckles as, a teaching tool. Something I'm saying makes sense to you? Because and I still do, essentially, in a dualistic framework, think that those are the two sides of the same coin, is, fear and love. That's what's under, if you take racism, or any other us and them, the whatever it is that makes an us and a them, underneath all of the sort of negative, destructive, manifestations of that using and theming, is fear. It's, oh, Trump wants to build a wall because, they will come and, eat our pets and rape our women, pillage your village. I was just thinking of the Addams Family movie. I will come and burn your village, like take your women and burn your village to the ground. That is fear. And people in power use fear, and they use the fear of love, even, well, in the Bible, queer love is, woo, they sure got a lot of fucking mileage out of that one, But, what is being gained by the people in power? Like, what is their intention? You know, what is it that they are, what's their business? What's their business with you? You know, what am I trying to get from this relationship with you? You know, yes, I would love, you know, support, financial support. That's sort of the last piece for me. But it's also, ironically, like, just as I got comfortable with, like, yeah, please, like, you know, I have my, whatever, my PayPal, my Cashapp, my, like, if you want to, you know, support me financially, I've given you the way to do that, which I didn't do for a long time. I wouldn't say it, I wouldn't. And I internally really sort of, while I never questioned my integrity, I, you know, had some concern, you know, sort of way down the road when, because I've been told that, you know, I'm kind of a big deal. You know, I have the potential to create, not create, but to help guide our creation of a better sort of reality, a better community, a better, you know, wherever we are together. You know, Earth, the United States, the, you know, I'm in Portland right now. I'm, you know, in a hotel, and there are people around. So, like, the community that I show up in, I always want to leave it like camping, you know. Pack your trash, you know, leave it at least as good and, you know, whatever, where you found it, and then, you know, ideally, even better, you know. You know, if I could plant a money tree, in every, see, but then it's like, oh, if you plant it in, I was like, you know, in every, whatever, in every neighborhood that, you know, could use a little help. I also don't want to, you know, create more problems. So, you know, for me, it was, figuring out, you know, how to best serve, and then that was my mission, you know, kind of always has been since I was a little kid. You know, how can I add to this, you know, friendship group, this, you know, party, this whatever, and as I became more and more focused on, like, oh, okay, especially, you know, after I got run over and had a little check-in with the PTB on the other side, so to speak, when I was currently left my body in park on the, I think, Cathedral Street. I just found out where I got run over, basically. You know, it was like, boop, it was there. I wasn't in it. And I was, you know, sort of given clearer, but still so not clear instructions and the choice to stay out of my body or to come back in it. And I don't have some like woo amazing fucking death story, and it was very very minimalistic in terms of descriptors. It was like, well, I was having a conversation with someone, and it was a thought conversation, and it was just like, it's so clear even now, and we were sort of in, it would be like the darkness, like the deep darkness of space, and then there was somewhere other that was still within that space, and the best way I was able to describe it was kind of like a football field lit up at night, and like if you took that football field and the lighting and the wow, it's like as bright as day. It's probably brighter than my room is right now, and it too was in the deep dark vastness of space. Everything else was that, and then that was just like whoop, kind of below, and left, very slightly left, no, yeah, very pretty much center, but like where we were was above, but it wasn't, there was no up, down, right, left. It was just like there and not there, but there in the not there-ness. Anyway, see, yeah, not much to it, but basically I was told that, karmically or whatever, and it, that wasn't it. Like, it was very little was said, but that I didn't have to, like, there was no personal gain, or like I didn't have unfinished work to do for myself, but that there were people who would need me or could benefit from me, and it was people I hadn't even met yet, which is you guys and everyone that I have come into contact with since May 19th, 1995, and including people, those of you who I knew before that. We are different, but we're the same. It's only a sewing together of who we are now, and the now that we were then. So yeah, and that doesn't tell me a whole lot. Like, oh, okay, it's not like you're gonna go back into your body that is fucked up, by the way. That's a much more interesting story. But it's like when Kuan Yin told me that I would go to Hawaii, and I would know when, and I would know why, and that was it. Part of this journey, the mission plan, the sort of in terms of maps and guidebooks and whatnot, didn't have very explicit information, but that's the path, that, I'm guessing that you guys are on, is, but, fortunately for you, I would think, but that also makes it, there's so much noise that needs to be filtered through, and that's sort of the beauty of the, pre-tech, access to instant gratification in terms of, you might call it information. Truth, that's where it gets a little, little slushier, a little, less clear. And not even in terms of deep fake and, fake news and all that bullshit, but just quality, and having to sort of sift through the noise of all of that. But again, even when using those tools on this journey, and those tools being used by spirit, by your guides, by your, relatives, that communication can and will happen through every available means. And, I joke and say the PTB is possessing my technology. It's when something is it's not working. I'm tapping this, and, if I didn't have the pen tool open, I would tap on that and it would do that. Which that's a part of learning discernment, is you can do whatever you want. You should see, and I won't even say should, I've learned that my discernment is key in even that. I don't jump to my first assumption when a piece of technology doesn't do what, it is supposed to do, or normally does, or historically has done. I don't jump to, that's my mom trying to say something to me, she is no longer in her body, which, is funny. She just did that with me not long ago, and it was, to a little, just cute pop in to me, and also my daughter, her granddaughter, who, they never physically met, in this life, but have a relationship, and it's one that, I continue to nurture and, keep flowing, but, just, it was looking up something about paella, and because, oh my God, my mom made the best paella, and that is something that I haven't had a paella since hers, that even was in the same universe. And what I looked up was, and it was, the tie-in is also just her sort of haha of me when I was a little shit, which happened around age 12, and my daughter just turned 13 in December, And my mom would say, like, oh, lovingly, but like, also like, oh, schadenfreude. Like she sort of wanted me to suffer a little bit, lovingly suffer. Oh, I can't wait till you have a daughter who, ABCs, and I have been both blessed and worked very much to avoid, as much as I have control over the situation, to parent in a way that, would delay that, me getting my comeuppance. And, I've been lucky, but I've also, like, I'm an amazing mom, period. Like, but it's kind of ironic because, right now, well, not right now, and that's the thing, like, right now, are you a mom? Yes, I am. Are you a mom only on paper? No, that is the last place I am a mom, and, like, wouldn't even care about being a mom on paper, and only, became a wife on paper in order to legally, worst case scenario, have protections for our daughter, like if one of us were to die, to make sure, specifically me being, the non-birth mom, but just to make sure, there weren't any unnecessary barriers, restrictions, whatevers, with signing up for school or, get your parents' signature on your report card kind of a thing. But surprisingly, the need for that, while the marriage didn't protect me in any way, like, individually and or in terms of being our daughter's mom, because of, I don't know if it's just a Washington thing or it's, whatever. The safeguards of, that we're supposed to be culturally, legally, much more protected. Like, we couldn't even get married. We couldn't be married before she was born because it was still, it was still illegal. So that is why I couldn't be on the birth certificate, which, that piece of paper, that's the one, like, on paper parent, that is the one that was impossible for me to be on. I did the closest thing possible and got it was like basically like my doctorate in the United States. You cannot be a doctor of divinity. You can, there are other other things similar, but so you get an honorary part, card, whatever, for my, tax purposes or whatever. If I decided to build a church, it'd get a little clearer, a little more firm. But I also, which is something that, I want to build a sanctuary. That's what I'm calling it. And it's, it's spiritual in nature. But the separation of church and state, ironically, is one that I don't want to close that door by, choosing 501c church status, because, while I gave up politics and, larger scale activism because I couldn't live. It was like I was so depressed and guilt-ridden, potential guilt-ridden about, how everything was connected, all the corporations and the atrocities, similar to, what has been done in the name of God. I'm not down with that. And so I couldn't, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't eat whatever because, the karma that I would accrue from doing so. But, that was in my younger days when I didn't know that's what that's about. And, how, things are what they are, independent of us. The truth of things, karma. But most people don't understand karma, and they don't then, work, act, whatever, quote, correctly in, dealing out specifically karma, or, being the intentional distributor of someone's bad karma, which ultimately is, how you create more karma for yourself, is in the, wishing bad karma, which is like, that to me is like one of those sort of spiritual truths that is funny. I talk about the Divine Comedy, or I did a lot. It's just, for you dark night of the soulers, let the light in, man. Like, Kuan Yin is hilarious. She is also everything that you have been told and read about her, and, including her sort of, east-west avatar crossover position. A lot of people think of Kuan Yin as, equivalent or whatever, basically same but different to, Mother Mary, who I don't know as much about in terms of, iconography or mythology, etc. That's just one of those, like, yep, vibe vibe-wise, meaning, you know, the easy peasy version of like good vibes, funky vibes, whatever vibes, and vibration. Though I don't have the book knowledge of, you know, the specifics of vibration and frequency and all of those things, because I don't need to, you know. I know what I have always known, sort of, you know, and then get finer tuning in my receiving of information, which is essentially new ways to talk to you guys and make connections and whatnot. But my path has been on purpose, you know, like I said, with, you know, I want to look something up and I can't. Like, things have been off limits to me, in that there's a resistance to them. There's a, oh yeah, maybe later, you know, or a like, you know, like with certain tools of divination and whatnot. I'm like, yeah, you know, like I've never used a Ouija board, and that was out of fear for a long time. While I have gotten beyond the fear of that, it still hasn't, a Ouija board hasn't come across my, you know, reality, to where I would then decide like, oh yeah, let's do this. A more frequent example of that is in my training as a medicine person specifically, and what medicines will be, you know, for me, for you, just to like keep it simple, linear, you know, because that can change, where medicine wasn't the right time for me to, you know, work with any, like, you know, something specific, even, you know, essential oils, different things like that. They come to me when, it's so funny, it's like the timing and time are two different things, I think. Right now I'm declaring that for us. Much like, you know, Eckhart Tolle talks about, I think he said clock time, and, you know, which clock time would be the, like, oh, you know, I broke my tooth, I need to make a dentist appointment in the future, but you only deal with that tooth, or don't deal with that tooth. My watch just said it's 7 o'clock. In the now. But to function, to whatever degree you want to participate in society as it is. See that? I don't burp really. So in real time, just like something would be a little wonky with my technology, and it keeps happening and it keeps happening, and I've done the things that, you know, make sense to clear my cache, or, all of the tech support kind of things. Once those are ruled out, then it's like, oh, okay. But I usually don't, I know before going through all of those steps that, like, oh, that's my mom. I was just about to, or I wasn't about to, I had opened my book. I think I showed you guys, because I wouldn't have been able to do that on paper. And I think I was just getting to, bringing it up on, on paper. Oh, but look, paper now. Is this paper for you? Well, what's up with that paper? Oh, wait, I moved this, but that's not moving. See? Same, but different. In the now, this is both paper and not paper. It's just, you can what I started to say about, participating in society, in this reality, how much you stay grounded, and it's like being rooted or tethered to your whole history of your awareness, your reality up until this point. For me, I have the blessing, the whatever of, or the curse, if I was never introduced to any of this stuff, who knows, I would still be here right now, but, who would show up? You guys would probably be a different version of you. I would be a different version of me had I not had, a sort of linear history of, oh, I was a very sensitive kid. I was clearly, channeling and whatevering, communicating with my environment, both seen and unseen, before I had the language to, linguistically label and box and quantify and good or bad those experiences. And I had gotten to whatever point it was. Now I don't remember, oh, interesting. I was just doing some work that I forgot about in my meditation today, of going back through quote time, and sort of attempting to experimenting with whatever healing things, relationships, experiences, whatever's, like I never met my grandmother, and my relationship with her has changed drastically over the course of my life, from, like, oh, I wished that she were in my life, when I learned that people have grandparents and, yours is missing, you don't have one, you have a different grandmother, who was, was that for me in every way, but she wasn't, my mom's mom or my aunt's mom. She was in my pop-ups, first wife, creator of those women in my life, and their relationship with both Ruby, who is, was Mama, spelled M-A-W, I believe, Pop-Up and Mama. But to me, she was, neutral and loved, basically. Like, my experience with her was all positive. And that didn't change, even though as I got older and, was aware of conversations and or was a part of conversations about her being their step mom, versus their mom, who, was definitely, I come from a line of women who do this, but my granny Ruth, my mom's mom, she didn't have a mom who started channeling and teaching her and giving me the preparation for the journey, for this job that I'm here to do. And for people like us who, I'm sure there are many of us out on the streets in, maybe you're sitting in a mental hospital and, somehow have access to this, or we're at the point where the medical community has fully, dropped the fucking us and theming and the, we're better, because they have a couple of, initials after my name, and my doctorate isn't honorary. The sanctuary world that I am building is where I am there working with and having this conversation with you in person and working on stripping away the labels of pathologizing your metaphysical, maybe you're a healer, you're a medium of some sort, and you were medicated for that, when you first started channeling, or, if it's a visual thing, you were labeled as sick, diseased, a lunatic. That was actually closer to, source medicine, earth medicine, plant medicine, shamanic, natural medicine, which the distinction for me is natural and not natural, while they, you know, are, one is not better than the other. You know, for the most part, it depends on the situation that needs healing, and sort of, you know, is this an emergency triage, you know, battlefield medicine. You know, there are a lot of surgeons and orthopedists and whatnot during wartime. Then, you know, they don't get to continue doing that when, you know, they're no longer needed. Much like it baffles me that, you know, I've worked in restaurants with doctors and engineers and who knows what else, you know, and they were in the lowest of the low positions in the restaurants that I worked. You know, usually, I was like, I almost just said a bus washer, you know, dishwasher, kept away from the public, you know, back in the kitchen. But yeah, that's the, like, God forbid those, you know, doctors from Mexico come into our country and, you know, start healing people for less money, you know, incorporating traditional sort of ancient modalities of treatment for a wider group of people in need. You know, it's like, that's where it can get, it's so simple, but it gets more complex and whatnot, you know, when we're talking about systems that need healing, because ultimately it comes down to the individual, but there's no just individual. We are only collective, you know, we are only community, whether it's, you know, like I said, Portland, this transitional housing hotel that I'm living in, you know, it's across the street from a hotel that is probably very much like this one, except, you know, it's $90 or so a night, because I thought about, like, oh, because my daughter can't come here and spend the night, just because, you know, for a lot of reasons that are both dumb and arbitrary and, you know, make sense. But before I lose the trail of the Doctors Without Borders, because I've never really thought about it in that specific way of the having too many doctors, more doctors than patients, more teachers than students. What a different world that would be, you know, where everybody was, you know, I'm very much politically socialist, democratic socialist, whatever, but that's the kind of community I want to build. I am building. You know, you are co-creating with me by joining in, you know. And hey, you know, financially seeding and watering and whatevering, and or, you know, using this tool of me thinking that, you know, this will be uploaded to YouTube and or whatever else at some other point, for you to find. And, you know, just in terms of YouTube, you know, contributing and co-creating with me in, you know, commenting and, hey, like, oh, that, what you said about that made me think of this, you know. And oops, what did I just do? Oh, see, that doesn't, that's one of those things. It's like, yeah, normally I can't do any of this stuff, and sometimes it changes. Hi, Ziggy. She wanted to say, I'm part of this community too. I'm like, oh, but if you're that part of the community, makes it a little more difficult for me to, hi. But yeah, so that's the thing about, you know, and me doing this, like, back to, you know, I'm very, like, anti transactional relationships, you know, to the extent that, hi, puss, okay, come on, sorry, Ziggs, come on. I was like, I was already gonna get up, and I felt my body like I have to pee. Meow, meow, meow. Hi, pretty kitty. But yeah, it's being someone who is getting better and better at, you know, receiving from my fellow humans. I'm great at receiving from, you know, non-human animals. Hello, cutie. That's so cute. She just went and did a little loop. But specifically, you know, and I've said this, if you've heard it before, you know, I get paid the big bucks, receiving from spirit and having just weird things happen that either make the need for money not necessary. Like, oh, I was thinking about these shoes that, you know, I don't need, but I would like, or whatever. Like, I need a new bra. That is something I do need. I've had the same fucking bra for, jeez, let's see, probably, yeah, I got it on the way. My poor little bra, I think it was in, my room's a bit of a mess because I went grocery shopping and I want to do a clean up here. I only have this tiny fridge, so I had to make some choices. Let me see if I can show you guys this bra. Yeah, first of all, you can tell by the color. I've worn it as a bathing suit top, or at least, you know, out in nature, where I may or may not have gone swimming in it. But, oh, that wasn't it. Yeah, I was like, I think there's a hole. I'm like, that's just nubby, which I get rid of those. And you can do very carefully, depending on the fabric, but with a very sharp, maybe better to not use a very sharp razor blade. And just, what are those things called? I'm like, they're not pearls. But yeah, so this, but this is, there was a paper clip, and this is how, this would be an example of the big bucks. So outside my room, the carpet out there there was a pink paperclip, kind of right in between these two pinks. Yes, that is pink, but super faded. So this paperclip was out there, and I kept, like, you know, I would see it when I did something to make this work so that it would close. I think I just put that, I took it off of a keychain or something, but I feel like, no, it was a zip tie. Where is it? I was like, oh, there it is. It is. Okay, so I'm like, the other side has been, that's been on there for a while. But whatever was on this side holding it together, it used to, like, poke me, and I would usually only, like, it was when I was driving or something that I couldn't, this drawer falls open. See, I'm not level. So this is my solution, rather than having it in an open drawer, period, but specifically for this little puss who would, you know, cats and drawers, and behind the drawer is really what is usually at issue. But anyway, so this paperclip was out there, and for whatever reason, either my hands were full, or I just was like, I just don't need to bring any more shit into my space, because that's been an ongoing thing for me, and it was a kind of big issue in my marriage, in my relationship. You know, being someone who over time and wealth levels has learned to value definitely quality over quantity, just period. But you know, whether I had the, you know, quote, disposable income or not, that I could continue to be impulsive in my, like, shopping, in my, you know, recognizing the difference between want and need, and, you know, all of those things. But I definitely lean towards less and quality, and have for quite a while. But I used to be like, you know, Daddy, I want it now. And it was, you know, whatever the dumb little tchotchke checkout line impulse thing, you know, which they put there on purpose. Just like, what's his name does his butt funnels, John Barman, which I think is just a terrible name, and he's really proud of it. But from a, you know, marketing perspective, and similar to how I'm, you know, with people with like knowing yes or no, I can do that with, like, oh, that is brilliant, you know, like, that is a great name, or a whatever, and that is just a terrible one, but whatever. I'm like, he's doing his thing, he's bar rescuing, and 800 of them or whatever, so, but yeah, butt funnel, you know, the idea, see, but I'm also a little, like, on the idea of, at least how he describes funneling people into having, you know, face-to-face interactions in bars, you know. It's like, well, that's going to happen, period, you know. Like, people are either, you know, ready for making a connection of some sort, or their level of, you know, inebriation, intoxication, as that shifts their openness and willingness to, you know, connecting with somebody else, be it face to face or otherwise, you know, that's the nature of a bar. But yeah, he's about like, oh yeah, people, and then they'll stay longer, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's sort of like, you know, next level manipulation that, you know, like, yeah, I get it, and yeah, it's gonna happen, and yeah, that helps. You know, I've talked to Riley about being a manipulator sort of for the greater good. I'm very aware of my ability to communicate in, you know, myriad ways to get A, B, C, D, E, you know, like when I wanted to, as I drink right now, although that is not, and they didn't have the sugar-free, but one of the sort of conscious decisions I made before becoming a parent and wanted to, you know, really kind of stick to, it's a super complex issue, and it's a you know, a tricky one, slippery slope. It's got all of the things, but I wanted to hold off on sweets and treats and you know, all you can eats kind of for rye until, because I knew at some point, you know, based on my own experience as a kid and seeing other people, other kids and parents and my friends growing up, and the outcome sort of, you know, the line you take, the, you know, your philosophy on food, and but specifically, you know, snacks and sugars and natural sugar versus that's, again, you know, as a medicine person, it's not about natural is good and, you know, artificial or processed in some way is bad, but you know, it depends on the science and the whole, there's a lot of factors that I'm like, above my pay grade's concern. But I had friends, you know, in Laguna, being a sort of very wealthy, but, you know, artsy, hippy-dippy town, like the jewel sort of in Orange County, LA, San Diego, that whole chunk of Southern California, but specifically Orange County, you know, like I didn't realize that it was such a Republican area, because that wasn't, it didn't exist to me growing up, like beyond like Reagan and, you know, Bush, the individuals and the like, war is bad, and, you know, this is good. Like, it was super simple and whatever, but obviously it makes sense based on, the money, the taxes, the whatevers, including, vacation money coming in, being a town that people want to go visit. But, so I had friends that were, I found out about yogurt covered raisins versus, white chocolate covered or chocolate covered, carob covered. And, my friend who, I don't remember how old, but it was definitely into 7th and 8th grade, I'm pretty sure. We kind of went, oh yeah, that would make sense, that we went more like our separate ways when I was in 8th grade. Although we lived, pretty close to each other, like, very close, walkable. But she was a year older than me, so, I started just, that's when, Garrett, my first love, and then Christy, my best friend, and, I just had a different friend group that, she had a different friend group as well, but they were still, we were still all friends and whatnot, just more like all the time, like she was my, pretty much all the time friend from whenever she was until then. But the point is, not only was that my introduction to health food, snacking and whatnot, but also like food monitoring, parents being micromanaging the diet and, health of their daughter. She had an older sister too, but but she used to have to take naps, and I would bet a small amount of money that I am correct, that in 8th grade, maybe even in 9th grade, but as I said, when she went to high school and I was still in junior high, and also I was way more of a partier than she was, but yeah, naps. Did I say that? She had to take naps, and I was like, what? Like, I haven't taken a nap since, I'm like, did I ever take a nap? I'm like, surely I did, but I think it was maybe even when I did, it was, oh, why don't you go, like, go in your room and read a book, like, after the beach or something, take your shower and then yada yada until dinner. It was presentation, was key, because I didn't remember taking naps, certainly not in quite a number of years, but it was just, I thought that was so weird, but I also was like, oh, okay. And then when I was allowed to stay sometimes, if we were like hanging out and playing, or if we went to the beach or whatever, and nap time came, I got permission to go nap, and I feel like she shared a room with her sister, maybe. But anyway, we were like, not sleeping. Maybe did sometimes, but mostly just quietly talking. And I feel like she even did it, or was supposed to do it, when her parents, her dad and stepmom, weren't home. And we probably were a little, less nappy when that was the case. But yeah. So, that is a way that you can choose to parent your kids. I see the value in it. I'm like, as a mom, kind of looking back, like, that's pretty genius. But also, like, not necessarily necessary. Sleep and kids, and that's a whole different thing. But, I'm more along the, like, the return on investment, like, what is the reason for it, and, is it necessary, and if it's beneficial, is it, like, very beneficial, and then sort of dialing in, there, but being flexible and fluid, but also, consistent. I'm a very consistent parent, and I'm consistently flexible as well, and it has worked very well so far, but as far as food goes, and just being, a woman now, but having been a, girl in Western culture and whatnot, I know that puberty specifically, but in general, like, we women, and it's now, men are being a lot more vocal and honest about their insecurities, which just, like, come on, folks, like, if we were all just a little more, like, honest, period, but vulnerable, and, like, taking those risks, the rewards are so great, and the experience of having, for me, a real conversation versus, a superficial one. I'm like, I really have no interest in, superficiality, period, other than for shits and giggles, but, I'm just like, no thank you. And as my time has become, to me, and my resources, specifically my energetic resources, and dimming here and turning up there, and, tweaking my own physiology, that is what it is. It's resource management, period. But with my kid, being a girl, although now, gender is more of a conversation, both, that's how everything is, though, when it's, like, first kind of comes up again. Clearly it's been it's the nature of, being human beings, and all throughout history, like, when you're living in the jungle or the, wherever, and, that there are some truths that naturally, the male body is, has more upper body strength, and women, lower body strength, and, yada yada. But and utilizing our bodies and as a community, as a tribe, like being honest in our assessment of, coming to the table as, yes, we're all equal, but men are taller, let's say, so it makes more sense to have them, reach for the fruit on the tree or the whatever, that we don't then have to like build a tool and and use our resources and whatever to build a ladder, versus lower to the ground activities or whatever, and not classifying them as better, less than and greater than, just different, but like two-spirit, that is truth coming back around. And it's been added to, which I didn't note, because I've been spending most of my time, energy, whatever, in the analog and or whatever. I don't obsessively monitor culture and whatnot, even though I'm part of the queer community. I don't keep an eye on the getting longer and longer and longer. Ultimately, that list will just like no longer need to exist in the community that I am building. It's just all colors of the rainbow are beautiful. In my whatever, I don't see color will, maybe it'll stick around in the history of like, oh my God, do you remember when people used to say that? Like, what the fuck? Yet, we will all continue to be all shades of, melatonin. Just kidding. Our melanin levels. Because I thought that when I was talking about the, like, getting the fruit thing. But, like, it makes sense to have that adaptation. Like, oh, I just got a little, like, light bulb. Historically, because from I think it's the Human Genome Project, we all trace back to Africa. But in just thinking of, like, man and the wild, and like animal predators and whatnot, like, because initially when I thought of it with that other, whatever example I brought up about height difference, I thought about, just like popped into my thing, like, oh, the sun and melanin and whatnot. But then that got kind of sidebarred just because of the, although that makes sense, that it has changed with, skin exposure to the sun and healthy levels of it and, protection and whatnot. That has shifted as we have done what we have done to our poor little Pachamama over time. Like, humans were around for a long time. Low impact low impact humans. And then we rapidly, like, we did a fucking shit ton of destruction in a very short period of time. But going back to the, people of color, skin, in terms of, adaptation and living, more wildly, having that darker skin, as a hunter, is beneficial, I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that. Like, I was mostly thinking about it in terms of sunlight, not moonlight or lack thereof. But my energy's like winding down, because this was just going to be a quick note. This little, that one, 5:30, like a chain link connector to my written thing. But here we are 2 hours later. Just as far as parenting and the reason I believe I am such a successful parent is that I was very conscious in my parenting. I came, knowing that I was really here for it, and that it would be pretty much the only thing in my life that, my marriage relationship would take a, backseat to our parenting relationship, time, energy, and, little humans need a lot at all times until they can do more and more for themselves. That was another fundamental difference in our parenting is, the level of not doing for our kiddo as she was getting older. Not cooking every meal and whatnot, and letting her, make a mess. Because that's the trade-off is like, well, you're going to have to clean up sticky, peanut butter and jelly sandwich messes. Whereas, you can whoop, whoop, do it, and might even be able to not even have to wash the knife if you're, very skilled. But because that's how my brother and I were raised, was, as little humans, future adults. And that was not the case, in the relationship that, she was raised, and, it's still going on, that, the mother's need to be needed was and is so much stronger, like to the point of not my circus anymore, outweighed entirely the needs of the daughter to become independent and confident and whole and independent, and to be able to say, no, thank you, I don't want this tchotchke that, your impulse shopping brought into your life, and now you are sending my way because now you have it and you definitely don't need it, nor do you want it. So what is easiest for you to get rid of it is to, whoop, here, do you want this? And have someone in the position who cannot say no. That is the perfect, boom, system if you want to keep it running that way. For me, I was like, because I already learned about things and too many things and attachment to things. Before I went to Kauai, I had to assess my things with both parents no longer here to give me more things, other than I figured out later how they still continue to do that. But, my attachment, that was really difficult. Leaving my cushy apartment and, the security, everything that goes along with it, to give that up and go to Hawaii because, an ancient master who you grew up with, Kuan Yin, said, you'll go to Hawaii, you'll know when, and you'll know why. And it was like, oh, okay, the why is more clear. Okay, I'm in training to, the mission that, was, the teenage me hadn't yet been run over and said oh, hey, this is an exit point if you want to take it, but come on, don't you want to go back and, keep going? Okay, put me in, coach, fine, fuck it, After I'd gotten beyond the point in my psychology where I was no longer, really depressed and just didn't want to be here. I'd gotten beyond that to then, die. And aside from, that question of me continuing and whatnot, it was also I could no longer justify or feel like when kids say, I never asked to be born, on a spiritual teaching level, it's well, that's bullshit. And also on a just practical level, it's well, I didn't ask for you, you little shit, whether I was trying or not, but I could no longer indulge in that kind of disregard or lack of appreciation for life, regardless of, what is happening in it. And then I would, grow more and more into the, looking at challenges as opportunities and not, oh, poor me, just boop, 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 I could have at the point in my life. It's not to say that, I was told at that point, basically karmically on the bigger picture, I'd learned everything that I needed to. And I now know that I was already, at that point, before I was, born in 1971. But going back to that, we forget, the agreements we made and, what we signed up for. all right, here I am, just like, a light being, is what I used to call it, or, boop, like our essence, where we could just, pop around and, do whatever at any, quote, time, be in multiple places, whatever the, like how much you have personally imagined what it's like not to be bound by, these restrictions of, the physical laws of the universe as we, continue to know it more and more. I just thought, like, oh wow, that'd be really cool. And to me, who was like always an outsider, at least internally, like when your parents come to you for support, and not in any sort of way that, would bring about, thoughts of like, oh, you poor kid. It was like they came to me as like as a peer, and then some, but so in that way, in looking around and not knowing what I know now, I kind of felt a little sorry for myself about this, that, or the other thing, things about, we all kind of do that, regardless of how, privileged we are, what is, perceived as lacking, and or, failings of our parents, or whoever's, the ones that are supposed to, be there to support us and teach us and whatever. I had my, whatever it is, like, no man is an island, which I don't know what that is from or whatever. But the idea of it, it was like, I used to think, well, maybe I am. And maybe I'm the only, the only island that is a person, the only one that is, outside of everyone, everything, like, but I get that now, what that was about. And, we are all that in our own way, in our own experience, and for you, Dark Night of the Solars, if you're still here, like, yay, that means that, I was able to be that lighthouse for you out there. I'm like, okay, come on, you're okay, I see you, I see all of you, and I'm sending it out right now that this is who I am, and this is what you're going to get from me. And while I can promise you that I can't promise you anything in terms of, how I will show up as far as, these videos are released on Tuesday and Thursday, and, they have some sort of form and format and whatever. As a parent, I didn't make promises. That was one of my things and I didn't pre-plan, like, I'm never going to promise my kid. It was one of those things that, like, oh, here's my opportunity to say, like, oh, I promise if you, get your booster shot, then this will happen, because, you know, when dealing with other people, you have only so much control. You can only manipulate for the greatest good to the extent that you can. And I didn't want to knowingly harm the trust that I was building in, you know, the relationship with our daughter. So, you know, I came as close to, like, if I promised I was going to do something, then I was going to do it. And then, you know, as she got a little older and more aware of, you know, oh, you've got a mama who was run over by a truck, and, you know, I had certain physical limitations that I could basically count on and know how to, you know, either with medicine and timing and, you know, like, oh, if I promise you we're gonna, you know, go to the river, and it means like hauling stuff and whatever, and I can assess my, you know, how much, if I have medicine to counteract, to make it possible to, you know, do certain physical things or whatever. And then after 2020 and COVID, and then being blessed with new issues of physicality and energy reserves, and knowing ahead of time what I would have in the tank, so to speak, because COVID was a fucking, like, curveball. It was a radical awakening for me. It definitely ruffled my feathers. In terms of, you know, my physiology and whatnot, as well as, you know, at the time it didn't matter because I was married. And 2020, oh yeah, maybe I was in 2020. Oh, that's interesting. That was the best time for, you know, my ex, in terms of, you know, not being able to work, being forced to not go to work, which is something that, you know, she, as far as I know, has never loved, and it's always been a chore, you know, but the responsibility, the, like, I'm a good person, I'm a good worker, I'm a good, reliable, that is something that she loved and still loves. Like, I think we all do. I think to a certain extent, you know, like showing up and, you know, knowing that we have shown up and that we can be counted on, you know. As that shifted for me, you know, as a result of my body circumstances, that was a difficult one for me, because I loved it, man. Like, when I was waiting tables, I loved it. Loved going to work, loved making money, loved, you know, like, you know, but, you know, except when I had a hangover, then not so much. But, you know, it was, my work ethic is, you know, on point. But the way I go about it is, you know, it doesn't work for for everyone. It didn't work for my ex in terms of, it was kind of baffling to her that I was able to make use of my fuel, like, and understanding my, sorry, I know I left some things that I was going to wrap up with, but that I could, because I was already like fully formed when we met, and she's still cookie dough, still is, but right now she's kind of cookie dough that, didn't get turned into cookies, but is taking on cookie like structural, she seems like a cookie and is a cookie, but isn't cookie dough and isn't a baked cookie. She's a cookie that just has formed and, calcified. That's not the correct word, but hopefully it is painting the correct picture for you. Because she didn't choose and still hasn't chosen her life, She is still living for other people. We left Humboldt to, move up here to, Portland, Vancouver, Portland specifically, but I'm in Portland. She's living in Vancouver, but we left so that we could have our own relationship, and, we had a kiddo, so we could be grown-ups and have, our own, like, the relationships and the life that I'd been living for, since I was 18, and maybe even a little bit before that, but, that's those relationship dynamics and patterns that, the next generation either breaks or doesn't, or, makes a shift. Some people, bam, they like blow that shit up and, like, poof, annihilate it to the extent that they, want to. But, I did the same thing. I tweaked things about my parenting that primarily just being a really, really, really present parent and being really conscious in my parenting and not being a parent until, I was ready. And, as I've said, I was ready to be a parent to a child when I still wasn't ready to be a parent to a dog. I could and I would and sort of did, but I knew that there were much better dog parents out there, so I let them do that, whereas, I might, and it's not even a might, really, I think I'm the best parent that I have ever met, and not because I'm better. It's just that I'm more, I had stronger, perhaps, convictions, and at the same time, openness, flow, strength. As I'm bamboo. As a parent, I'm bamboo, as a person, basically, But yeah, I'm sad for the potential that could have been, our marriage and our family. But it is what it is. And for me, it is better that it is not happening, because, on my end, I show up how I show up, but, you can only control, and you shouldn't, you can make suggestions and communicate and whatnot. But I did myself a disservice by, putting myself at the bottom of the sort of priority list when, but that's how I planned it, I didn't want to be a parent until I could commit to giving it my all the time. And with relationships, friendships, whatever, I am just getting comfortable with, asking. I had gotten to the point of, receiving, and if somebody's trying to give you a gift, don't be a fucking martyr, and then getting beyond the, I was about, if I knew 100%, as much as I could know, that somebody was giving me something purely, unconditionally, it was bringing them great joy in whatever form, then I would receive it, accept it, But if there were any kind of strings that I was aware of, even if the person giving wasn't aware of it, but I knew their, sort of patterns and whatevers, and, any kind of gotchas, you weren't going to get me, oh yeah, you're giving me a gift, and then, I know, inside the Schrodinger's box is a dead cat. Well, no, thank you. I'll pass on that, But then even being okay with, receiving from somebody who was, consciously or unconsciously working on, their generosity or, whatever. I'm like, cool, I'll take it, because I'll take the gift, but not the the rest of the whatever that is, that's your whatever, that's your path. But, then it got to be a certain point where it was just stupid of me, come on, not asking you guys, or not even asking, but not setting up a way that, you could help support the cause, the dream, the mission, all that good stuff, the channel, the me, the kitty, the kid, get me from this hotel into my next home, because I haven't had that since Kauai. I've had joint homes, for the, almost past 20 years of my life. And when your partner changes their sort of, what I call, money karma, or that's not as accurate, just relationship with money, that kind of lessons. Then it's tricky, the person who I got together with really changed quite a bit, and it was after her dad died, who I'm still, we're still in conversation, and I tried to share that with her, but yeah, she's just really, she's a turtle, she's a turtle that, I think she's a sea turtle that thinks she's a, not even a tortoise, but like, she thinks she's a human, I guess, would be the closest thing, but if she would realize that she's a, like, majestic sea turtle, like, oh my God, she'd be so fucking stoked, and I'd be so stoked, and, who knows, but there's a chance that, we would still be together, and, having our little parental, like, kerfuffles and whatever's, but she let me lead when it mattered, and it worked out, but then if you have somebody retrospectively rewriting history, it's just weird, like having somebody who wasn't in our relationship, but that the problem was that she was uncomfortable. This is where gender pronouns and whatnot, like, I had a like, no at first, because it was like, who the fuck are you talking about when you're saying she or they? She and she, but same, like, but it was the they and they, and not knowing if somebody was talking about a singular they or plural, and wasn't using names, and was telling stories about people who I didn't know at all, nor did I really, like, I wasn't all that interested, but I was like, this person wants to share what is meaningful for them, and it was like, it like bothered me, but then I immediately like knew that my bother, because post awakeness, for me, I'm not easily bothered. I don't lose my temper. I don't sweat the small stuff. I knowingly act out my, like, rah, as a sort of pseudo road rage in yelling at, bad drivers that do dangerous things. But it's like playing a video game, and the video game is, road rage, if that makes sense. But, I don't know what the fuck I was talking about. Yeah, I'm just like, I'm even keeled, but I do have deep, passion about injustice and, that kind of stuff. It's not like I'm oh, kumbaya, everyone. Que sera, sera. Which I just found out the original was my name, but I saw it as Che, because it's, whatever. It looks Spanish, used in English. It's not Spanglish. It is Italian. And I saw Che. I'm like, yeah, there's definitely a revolutionary in me. And for me, it is, I have a revolutionary heart and mind, but I would prefer the fighting be passionate and agreed upon, basically, like I love a good debate and a pugilistic, like, adrenaline fest. But, like, if I had to choose, like, all war or no war, I would, choose no war. But, let the games continue. But, yeah, anyway, that's all I got, kids. Oh, let's see, 22. And Mama needs a break. And I think I might, I don't know. But I haven't shared any, I recorded a 4.5-hour video, but, I think I know I flashed, some like banking information or something inadvertently doing one of these things, so I haven't uploaded it, but there's no reason for me to watch this before posting it, as far as, I haven't said anything that I wouldn't say to your face. So, them's my words, and I'm sticking to them. There certainly could be, will be, lots of, potentially, what? Like, that made no sense, or I was following until, well, that's what the fucking comments and all that stuff is for. And, I really, really would appreciate and could certainly benefit from, your support in any way. And just, I'm doing this now for real. Like, is that or a cactus? So yeah, please, just like, this is my channel, but this is our thing here, and yeah, I'm the boss, as far as, like, what I do and don't do and say and whatever, but this isn't for me, other than it is it is what is, and I'm excited about it. And yeah, one thing I started to say, I think, or maybe I just thought it and didn't, is I just got to the point where, because like, as I said, the, sort of financial piece of this, getting compensated like most people do, for their work. It's like, it's not abnormal to, get paid for paid for your job. Ideally, I'd love to keep it in sort of open-ended tip form for as long as I can, because that is in alignment with my sort of values and what my utopian ideals, versus like this, whatever. If you want to talk to me for however long, and that would be much easier to do if it was, just straight up like readings, and or I have done, as far as one-on-one work, but even that, I'd like to keep it open-ended. I'm just open to receive it, and I'm in no way like, I don't want it if you don't want to give it, or if you I don't want to put anyone out by, that's not what it's about. And it's more along the lines of, I just was thinking, and I mentioned in my video that was like, holy shit, oh yeah, it was because I accidentally got high, which was supposed to not be possible according to trusted sources on, Google and whatnot, from eating ganja flower. But so that's part of why I was like, woo, okay, this is even more, when I said, like, I can't promise you guys I'll show up, blah, 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 like, but I might show up like that, and for 4.5 hours, but, yeah, this is what you're gonna get, basically. That's, this, I don't see, because as much as I have changed, over the journey of my life, I also am basically the same exact person, a little stronger, a little wiser, perhaps, but yeah. Que sera, sera. SnarkySifu. Ciao for now. Oh, see, I don't have my thing. I don't even know if I'm recording still, am I? According to that little green light that was there. Oh yeah, I don't have my normal, my little thing that I just did, my Lucy booth. SnarkySifu 2-cent. Give you my 2-cent, advice, or whatever this shit is that I'm doling out here on the tube. Alright, much love to you guys. Yeah, please, comments, questions. I think I'm gonna redo my thing, and just, I'm having problems with email, which is always a problem, except when you pay for it, which something's up with my, snarkysifu.com mail, because I was with, I got sucked into WordPress sort of accidentally in their mail server, although I paid for a year. Like, you know, it's just a problem because they were trying to get me to use more of their whatever's not even services. That's the thing that was annoying. Is like I'm already paying for you know, my domain, and but yeah, junk mail, man. Woof. So I want to make it so that, you know, because that's the one thing that sometimes I wish, you know, that I didn't have to do so much work if I wanted to reach out to someone in a more in-depth way, you know. So right now, that's just on my thing, but if you know, it's SnarkySifu everywhere. You know, all the mails and the whatnots. It's just the spam is overloading because, you know, that's the way they want it, you know, because they want us to pay for more storage. So they don't make it easy for us to, you know, clean out your whatever. You know, fortunately, Google has made it easier, but it is not, you know, yeah, it's just either throwing out the baby accidentally with the bathwater, or, you know, taking the time and energy and whatever to sift through the dump to, oh, there's the baby, sorry, I didn't mean to throw you out. And phew, good thing I got to the dump before, you know, you were fucking put on a barge and, you know, sent out into the ocean or lit on fire or whatever. Yeah, metaphors. I write poetry too. I shared it with my daughter for the first time last night, and her face was like the biggest compliment I've ever gotten in my life. Yeah. Anyway, maybe I should share some poetry on my little channel. Who knows what you're gonna get? Alright, I don't know how long I've been talking because I don't have a little picture of me telling me. So, and that's because, you know, you tweak one setting and something else happens. So, it is what it is. This is really cool, this Power of Now. I'm finally getting around to it, and I'm enjoying it greatly. My daughter doesn't like his voice. I'm like, really? I love it. And I think maybe if she had seen one of his videos, he's super funny. And that's the thing, Dark Knighters is, you know, God or whatever is just love and funny, and, you know, you're not going to hell if you say, oh my God, that was fucking amazing. It's just not going to happen unless you believe it. And if that is your truth, then, whoop, I guess, you know, maybe that is the, you know, the formula to make that happen. But nah, it's just not even. And, you know, I used to be sensitive to, you know, ghosties and whatnot, and think there was some malevolent, you know, potential, but if anything, it's, you know, frustration at, you know, beings that are trying to communicate and, you know, not getting through to people. So, chances are, if that kind of weird shit is happening, well, you're here, so chances are you're, like, open to it. But, like, there really is, nothing bad, or, certainly not if you're present. Then it's the gift that is what it is. And, you've got all the say in all the feels in that. But if you're feeling funky, like, turn on the lights, put on some music that, get up and dance if you can. Put on a comfort show. For me, it was like when I was feeling disconnected and whatever, listening to, like, talk radio that was live made me feel connected, versus, putting in a DVD of a comfort show maybe didn't, like, do the trick. But, play with your settings and just, like, know in your heart that everything is okay. You're okay. And I'm here for you. And that's, why I want to make it easier, and so that people can communicate with me. And, while I know that as this community grows and our sanctuary expands, I'll be able to do what I can do. But even if you can't get through to me right now, I am receiving you. I will receive you, and you can receive me. Or, ask for your guides, your whatevers, your angels. All of us on this team are here to support, and, only to support and grow and love and expand and evolve. And, whew, woo-saw, the fucking, pop the cork of the, the buildup of, like, get your yayas out and, whew, like, shake it, baby, shake it. Yeah, like, you can do so much more than you realize. And you Christians, like, homie, Jesus said you could. So, if Jesus was the Word, the living embodiment of God, and here to, get us to, like, do better, clearly he's got Pop's permission to do so. So, Jesus was a rebel and a, he hung out with everybody, hookers and homeless, and, really that whole judgment thing is just poof. That is the most baffling. It was the first bafflement. The what the fuck? Like, no, you guys seriously misinterpret. You got your, your Christianity off of TikTok. That is, trust the source. Like, you could very well get, your Christianity from TikTok and whatever. But if your TikTok preacher is, scaring you, telling you that you're going to hell, well, fucking turn that shit off, Don't keep feeding that machine. that's bullshit. And God told me so. So there you go. All right. Much love to you guys. Ciao for now. Peace.